warfare, deadly threat, and his reign of terror ain't done yet. Implosion is a sure bet.
They said the sacred ancestral revealers, seers, and healers were telling lies. Yet Mother Earth is shifting and changing right before your very eyes in order to resurrect a new breed of consciousness.
Quote, as we have said, there is only one solution, and it does not relate to any type of racial extermination, ethnic cleansing, or tribal massacres, any religious crusades or holy wars, any violent revolutions or hate-mongering attacks of any kind, any scapegoats or devils to blame. The reality of divine solutions is that one is responsible for the nature of the energy that one consumes, mentally, physically, and spiritually, and one is accountable for the nature of the attitudes, values, behaviors, and beliefs that one allows to dominate and control one's existence. End of quote. Page 286 from the prophetic 12,594-year Banu cycle, encoding the consciousness of higher peace through the divine union of masculine and feminine energy, Book 1 by High Priest Kwatamani, Supreme Soothsayer, Soul Seer, Spiritual Healer and Revealer, Chief Elder of the Kwatamani First Genesis tribe, the oldest, longest sustained, raw and living, plant fuel consuming, family community order known, over half a century and still going strong in the tropical rainforest.
The holistic living truth is we must restore sacred ancestral masculinity. He is the key to providing divine guidance and protection to the sacred ancestral she. And if we do not get femininity restored, there's no possibility of breathing, seeding, and feeding a holistic living consciousness, a new generation of children of the sun. Therefore, we have no possibilities of restoring that sacred ancestral order where a higher peace consciousness was the greatest reality man, he, and she could ever experience.
The first Genesis, the natural and innate Genesis, scientifically exact, spiritually intact, a natural born fact, the divine union of masculine and feminine energy. Quote, the earth did mate with the sun. Her feminine embodiment would breathe within the wind as the rain moistened her fertile soils to be fertilized by the sun's ejaculations, giving birth to the rainforest paradise as the sacred garden, multiplying divinity in every offspring and vibration as the fruits of the tree of life. And the roots of the trees were nourished by the minerals and nutrients of the earth, and the green leaves were energized by the sun to produce oxygen and the food of the divine union of one, recycling the energies of earth, wind, rain, and sun into every offspringing vibration. End of quote. Page 40. Banu Book 1 by High Priest Kwatamani.
Regardless of one's race, creed, color, sex, or national origin, regardless of one's attitude, value, behavior, and belief, it is very clear that this is a holistic living expression of divine order, universal expression of the first genesis of man, he, and she. Now, what would happen if there was an intrusion or an invasion, or let's say a different kind of translation, the mind of a warlord? The transformations would cause an entirely different kind of attitude, value, behavior, and belief, and that would adversely affect the whole of Mother Earth, man, he, and she, and all living things thereof. A bit of historical fact that one must not ignore. When it rained, it poured.
Weapon warfare, deadly threat, and his reign of terror ain't done yet.
The sacred ancestral masculine vibration was ripped and torn apart as an agenda.
A divided house cannot stand, and this is just the way it was planned.
To gain a greater sense of control over that feminine she, reducing her to a lower and lesser state of being, then allowed that invasive and intrusive nature to be able to have her breed, seed, and feed his lower and lesser consciousness into every offspring and vibration of every generation born off of she.
Rape is a weapon of war. It's an old military strategy used to destroy a community.
Quote, the macho male war god consciousness and the syndromes of sexual violation, violence, war, and crime have ruled over the past 2,000 years, leading to these modern times. And what we have witnessed is a time of depletion and devitalization of the life energy of man, he, and she. End of quote. Page 169, Banu Book 1 by High Priest Kwatamani.
When universal law is violated, one is separated, isolated in the outer zone, where the self-deified male sits all alone on his throne, as his will be done by the barrel of a gun. Weapon warfare, deadly threat, any reign of terror ain't done yet. Implosion is a sure bet.
Whoever controls the hands that rock the crib controls every generation born off of that crib rocking hand. And they will be whatever he who controls she want them to be.
Generation after generation, she birthed his nation into this present day situation. By violent threat or undue consent, her will was broken, twisted and bent. Ancestral reasoning ripped, stripped out of her head. Instead, she only knew what he said. Yeah, the earth solar daughter was bred to be misled, filled with fear and dread.
His master program would be that would determine who those offsprings will become. We must remember, yes, we must come to a full recognition that divine guidance and protection is an absolute necessity if we're going to perpetuate divine nurturing affection. If there's an absence of one or the other in the process, what will happen will be a lower and lesser degree of consciousness fueled into every offspring and vibration of the generation next. Detox, purging, and healing is an absolute necessity. The feminine she will easily become man, he, and she's worst nightmare if she's not given the principles, morals, and values of divine guidance and protection. Therefore, the masculine he has an absolute duty, obligation, responsibility to dig into the essence of his masculinity and be a guiding and protective nature. We must resurrect that sacred ancestral family community order. Now, it is absolutely no possibility that it's going to be an easy task. There's so much sensitivity. There's so many mental and psychological, emotional ties to that nature that has ripped and torn apart our sacred ancestral family community order, only because it has been in place for so many generations, and those generations have not had any kind of pathway to lead them to detox, purging, and healing up until this very day. So we don't have any more time to be angry about anything, except if we know this supreme truth and continue to follow the same old pathway of destructive, oblivious nothingness. Now that's worth being angry about. The rest of it, we got to comprehend what happened. We have to comprehend that when it rained, it poured. And toxicity poured upon the children of the sun like never before. You had populations intruding and invading from a nature of consciousness where they too have been rained and poured upon and got lost and astray.
Quote, "We are not in any way condemning those children of the sun who became disconnected from their sacred ancestral spirit presence within the white blight of snow and ice. That definitely had to be a horrifying experience to deal with. As a matter of fact, each and every encounter that the children of the sun have had with the opposition energy has resulted in suffering, grueling misery, aches, and pains. We are therefore identifying the pale mental mindset born of those deep freeze experiences as the carrier of the opposition energy that continues to manifest selfish and ego-driven contradictions to the essence of life and supreme love." End of quote. Page 104, Banu Book 1 by High Priest Kwatamani.
Weapon warfare, deadly threat, and his reign of terror ain't done yet. Implosion is a sure bet.
Somehow, those sacred ancestors have given a sacred few of us enough strength and agility to come full circle in the supreme circle of life and face these times where one must choose to align with divine order or toxic reality, supreme truth or self-deified fallacy. We're talking about a choice between aligning with the first genesis of who we be within the sacred ancestral soulful essence of man, he and she, divine children of the sun, emerging out of a sacred garden culture presence, the tree of life culture where higher peace consciousness is the root, foundation, and base of our green earth solar conscious way of life.
Quote, "True, in the first genesis of life, the most supreme unseen masculine deity had a wife, the most supreme she who gave birth, as the union of masculine and feminine energy beget man, he and she on earth. And the word was clear. Let us make man, he and she in our own image, my dear. The we of divinity made the us on the scene, and man, he and she would be formed whole and clean. And out of the glory of this earthly paradise, man, he and she would be given raw and living fruits, vegetables, seeds, nuts, herbs, and spice, the supreme foods of the tree of life, maintaining mental, physical, and spiritual health and well-being, divinity precise. Unquestionably, this would be the supreme birth of man, he and she, the divine children of the sun, as we again come to be." Page 110, from the prophetic 12,594-year Banu cycle, encoding the consciousness of higher peace through the divine union of masculine and feminine energy, Book 2, Detoxing to Heal from the Vice Grip of the Self-Asserting Will, by High Priest Kwatamani.
Or where one do indeed have the choice to maintain that second genesis consciousness, that macho male syndrome that spewed curse upon she, where sexual violation, violence, war, and crime is a way of life, where the self-asserted will is maintained by a vengeful, jealous, greedy, blood-spilling nature of energy that requires burnt offerings.
Yeah, they used to tell us that story about some Genesis too, in the garden. And that girl went ahead and ate that fruit, but she ain't died like he said. Oh, but he cursed her now. Goodness gracious, he cursed them keepers of the garden up and down for eating some fruit. She got cursed in childbirth, and that man got cursed tilling the soil. Then, after that, they got wrapped up in some dead animal skins, got led out of the garden into the wilderness, and their firstborn son, he was cursed for bringing some fruit. Secondborn son, he was blessed, I be damned, for bringing the blood of the lamb. Then she went and had a third son, and he was called Seth. Seth. I ain't never thought about it like that. Oh, but it sure do sound different from Genesis 1.
Two different natures of energy, different as can be. Divine order or toxic reality.
That vicious cycle continued till it got to a point of a lower and lesser state of diminished return that makes it feel nearly impossible to recover. Yet, somehow, these are the times of holistic living resurrection, a new Banu cycle. And we must give supreme thanks, praise, and appreciation for having the privilege, the opportunity of being present within the physical form as sacred ancestral souls on this soul-to-soul mission of resurrecting divine social, economic, family, community order. Mother Earth is shifting and changing. And what we have to do is to know that we must respect Mother Earth. You see, the origin of sacred ancestral masculine and feminine energy emerged upon this planet as divine children of the sun, manifesting within a sacred garden culture presence from which we come. And I have no desire to be a part of those who curse their own being as masculine he. Goodness gracious. Can't one see, sense, feel, and hear what is necessary for man, he and she to heal from this toxic parallel? The pale veil of deception has been opened wide enough for any seeing eye to see.
Abomination, violation of universal law. The self-made man is the flaw. Monotheistically degrading she, placing she under he in some false claim of supremacy. Hexed by his own God complex. That's cause he never knew. She delivered too, as he is birthed by she. He is marked by the nature of energy, ejaculated into femininity, and the lower and lesser state he did ejaculate will seal his own fate.
She's going to breed exactly what has been brought to her worse. And this is the curse.
Conquest was the game, she would do the same. Since her womanhood was the prize, she started to monetize. Had her own conquest, she would test how tight to squeeze him, please him, and make him pay. Possess his energy through material gain. Revenge for emotional pain. Her nurturing affection for sale. Femininity turned cold and pale.
We must remember, these are the times of holistic living resurrection, a new Banu cycle. And we must give supreme thanks, praise, and appreciation for having the privilege, the opportunity of being present within the physical form as sacred ancestral souls on this soul-to-soul mission of resurrecting divine social, economic, family, community order. This is the time for healing, regardless of where one has emerged from. The key is we all emerge from that sacred ancestral mitochondrial mother. You know, this is not just a conversation. We're talking about holistic living reality here, and we got to get on it. Mother Earth is shifting and changing quicker than you can blink your eye. Hurricanes, tornadoes, wildfires, desert storms. We all must know for a fact that we have been warned that it is time for whole life change. In order to see whole life change, we, man, he, and she, must be whole life change in thought, in reasoning, in holistic living reality. We are only talking to the sacred few of the few of the few, who can actually feel, sense, hear, taste, touch the nature of whole life energy. You know, those who respect the tree of life, those who give honor to the sacred garden culture presence from which we come, those who take his and her time to interconnect with each other, man, he and she, so that we can glorify within a love supreme. You see, actually, man, he and she has lost contact with love. And if you have all of that grouchy, bitter, angry, scornful nature in you, you don't have the right to spew that upon a feminine, because she has enough to deal with as it is to try to recover without any divine guidance and protection from the sacred ancestral masculine he. What are we talking about? Impossibility. I'm not talking about you, the man, the macho male ego, the one who look around and say, I came. And you know what I'm talking about when you say you came. Oh yeah, I came. I got that. I saw. I conquered. Hey, been there, done that. Total insane nonsense. What did you accomplish? What was it that you got out of it? All in your mind. Delusions and illusions of an ego trip gone mad and then encoded in your subconscious so you can spew it back again and again and again. Toxic insanity. What we have to do now is man up for real. We must seek out that sacred ancestral Asarian nature. If you don't have anything else that you can identify, know for sure that at least with the sacred ancestral Asarian nature, he had a set. Now let's see what happened.
The narrative of Asar and Aset has its roots in ancient Kemet, dating back to over 5,000 years ago during the Old Kingdom period that predates the existence of Greece by around 2,000 years, predates the Torah and the Bible by approximately 2,500 years, and predates the Rig Veda of India by approximately 2,000 years. The complete story has not survived, only fragments, due to the vast desecration and destruction upon ancient Kemet by invading tribes and clans. For the most widely known version of the Asar and Aset story, we reference Plutarch. When Asar reigned, death was not in the land. Arms were not in men's hands. There were not any wars. Asar taught men and women wisdom. He taught them all the arts. It was he who first planted the vine. He it was who showed men how and when to sow grain, how to plant and tend the fruit trees. Asar made laws for men so that they were able to live together in harmony. He gave them knowledge of the gods. And from Geb, the father, and Nut, the mother, Asar was born. When he was born, a voice came into the world crying, Behold, the Lord of all things is born. And with Asar was born Aset. Afterwards was born Tahuti, the wise one. Then there was born Nebahat, and last there was born Set. And Set tore a hole in his mother's side. Set, the violent one. Page 93 from the prophetic 12,594-year Banu cycle, encoding the consciousness of higher peace through the divine union of masculine and feminine energy. Book 1 by High Priest Kwatamani.
Set lost his contact with whole life reality as a deified self and disrespected his own mother, ripping and tearing her womb. What happened is there was a little bit of confusion there because Nut was told very clearly, hey, look, baby, wrong time, wrong space, wrong place. And whether we want to accept it or not, Sister Nut, following the guidance, direction of Brother Geb, who had hard on, ignored holistic living truth. Wrong space, wrong place, environmental birth. And a cold, pale, and dink nature of masculinity came upon this glorious earth. A mono male, a self-centered, individualistic male, a predatorial, nomadic male who seeks and searches to dominate, control, and rule by any means deemed necessary, regardless of the hurt and harm upon humanity, Mother Earth, and all living things thereof.
Quote, Seth in his desert was angered against Asar, For everywhere green things that Seth hated were growing over the land, vine and grain and the flowers. End of quote. Page 24 from Banu Book 1 by High Priest Kwatamani.
We have to comprehend what that would do.
Quote, yes, Seth was as dry and barren as the desert he ruled. For what he lacked in spiritual strength, he attempted to compensate with the violent force of hostile aggression.
Weapon warfare, deadly threat, and his reign of terror ain't done yet. Implosion is a sure bet.
Seth's relationship with Nebuchadnezzar, his mate, could only be as dry and barren as the energy he brought for her to nurture. In any relationship, when one indulges in the pale mental mindset and its attitudes, values, behaviors, and beliefs that oppose the essence of life and supreme love. End of quote. Banu Book 1 by High Priest Kwatamani, page 122.
Vengeful, envy, jealous, greedy, warlike, wanting to dominate and control by any means necessary, rough, disrespectful, rude, ignoring the feminine she. And what would she do? At that point in time, she had enough sense to say, hey, this is a horror story that I'm experiencing.
Two different natures of energy, different as can be. Divine order or upset reality. Her resistance to that nature that opposes her existence is natural and innate. Which nature would she choose to guide her fate?
Nebuchadnezzar left Seth in his desert abode.
I'm going to find a way to convince my sister Aset to please take me in. Let me share the glory of that sacred ancestral masculine he that you are giving your whole life energy to. And what would she do as a loving sister but open the door?
Quote, we can see this mutually beneficial relationship in the sisterhood bond between Aset and Nebuchadnezzar. As a matter of fact, Aset and Nebuchadnezzar are not portrayed as jealous, envious, and competing enemies, but rather as supportive and caring towards each other. Indeed, the nature of their relationship speaks volumes about the divine union within feminine energy.
Nebuchadnezzar needed safety. This dude done gone crazy.
Weapon warfare, deadly threat, and his reign of terror ain't done yet. Implosion is a sure bet.
He's abusive. He will inflict domestic violence on her. He don't have any sense of recognizing that, hey, she's the birthplace of the new breed of consciousness. That's the reality that we're facing. And the chaotic nonsense is spread like a plague all over our glorious earth. But the reality is, the trick master, the shapeshifter felt like, okay, I got this figured out. I'm going to pounce upon my brother and cut him into 14 different pieces and parts and spread him all over the place so that he will never, ever, ever be remembered again.
Quote, but one night Seth, as he was hunting gazelles by moonlight, came upon Asar and Aset sleeping. Fiercely he fell upon his brother. He tore his body into 14 pieces. Then, taking the pieces that were the body of Asar, he scattered them over the land. End of quote. Page 97 from Banu Book 1 by High Priest Kwatamani.
However, that did not cause Aset and Nebuchadnezzar to say, oh man, you done destroyed the soulful essence of masculinity. I guess we'll have to follow you.
Quote, it is noted that Aset and Nebuchadnezzar did not find the 14th part of Asar's ancestral masculine anatomy. The root of Asar's masculine energy was not to be found in physical terms. The root of Asar's masculine strength was found in Aset's and Nebuchadnezzar's devoted nurturing of the sacred ancestral Asarian spirit of green earth solar consciousness. It is said that Aset and Nebuchad worked their feminine magic to forward the Osarian resurrection, which was consecrated within the divine union of masculine and feminine energy. If one looks closely and deeply at the divine message, one will see that the Asar, Aset, Nebuchad, and Set story is indeed prophetic, and as such relates to our present-day circumstances and conditions even more than ever before. End of quote. Page 452 from Banu Book 3 by High Priest Kwatamani.
Today, one can still sense and see those feminists of that Aset Nebuchad vibration who refuse to follow this culture that oppose divine order. But they don't have anywhere to go. Mass populations of masculinity have been reduced to a lower and lesser state of thought and reasoning and action, and have no way to think or reason how to raise up from that Sethian nature that oppose divine order. If we comprehend the mono-male syndrome, monotheism, monopoly, we will begin to see what we're dealing with.
Two different natures of energy, different as can be.
The sacred ancestral Saurian male energy must resurrect. However, the objective of that Sethian, Sutek, satanic nature was to put him in a box and then cut him into 14 bits, pieces, and parts, scatter him all over the world so that he would never, ever, ever be able to be remembered again. We must bring sacred ancestral masculinity to the forefront. Now the feminine, hey, they're plentiful, and we know that. And the males are few. So what are we supposed to do? It took Nebuchad to come up with the consciousness of what was necessary to safeguard her sacred ancestral feminine essence. And she did approach her sister clear and beyond the shadow of doubts to say, hey sis, make room. I do not wish to be placed in a lower and lesser state of reality. I need what you need. And since we have one solid masculine he who has taken charge of his natural and innate state of providing divine guidance and protection, because he has taken the stance of looking out for the women and the children in divine order, we need to come into a bond of oneness and share that glory, because we are souls. Masculine and feminine moving soul journeys is what we're upon. And we must take this soul journey very serious. We cannot be stuck and stagnant in that cold, pale mindset where the physical state of being is glorified and worshiped as all that is, because of the overwhelming circumstances of being depleted into a mono-male syndrome. You know, that syndrome that produces the warlord culture mentality, conflict, confusion, chaos mentality. That mentality where one is always predatorial, always working to compete against the other, trying to outshine the other, never seriously looking at the idea of working in a oneness. That's the vibration that produces envy, jealousy, greed, vengeance, war, spite. That's the energy that put conflict, confusion, and chaos between he and she, and definitely she and she, because they're competing to be able to conquer and control the male that she's able to get, put him under her arms to control him and to make sure that nobody else get part of her thing. And that's totally insanity. At this stage and phase where we're in, it's totally insanity. And since the feminine is the she who's communal by nature, she's going to produce offsprings. And since the masculine, by his nature, is born from she, he has an instinctual vibration that he needs to reinstitute, in order to safeguard his own existence. And we're going to have to look further than this Sethian nature. We're going to have to look further than this warlord nature, this nature that opposed divine order. We're going to have to look further in order to connect. Otherwise, we're going to continue to produce that lower and lesser nature of femininity, and she's going to breed that lower and lesser nature of masculinity, and implosion is a sure bet. Self-destruction is the ending process. Now, this is a challenge, and we're going to have to do it. And it is not an easy challenge. However, good things do not come easy. Let's look into holistic living reality and apply the principles, morals, and values necessary to institute this holistic living, resurrection of sacred ancestral masculine and feminine energy so that we can go forward, consuming of the holistic living fruits of the tree of life, and multiply this sacred ancestral presence into every offspring and vibration of the generation next. And then we've satisfied all those ancestors, those who refuse to follow that oppositional nature. Physically, we walk this earth as an encounter of that opposition nature. And the truth and the consequences is that we got a lot of healing to do. Now, in order for us to heal, we're going to have to look at supreme truth that has indeed been revealed. We must listen to the seer consciousness, and then we must take action. The action is a higher peace conscious state of thought and reasoning, where we uphold and maintain our tree of life culture so we can get enough strength within our brain, our body, our spirit to go forward in the manifestation of divine social, economic, family, community order. Someone will say, is that all we got to do? Hey, try it. That's a mamma jamma.
This code is sent to penetrate and to activate the heart of femininity. And he who loves the essence of she, encoded in the I, and so it be. Birthed into the Kwatamani first Genesis family tree conditionally. Prophecy, Ma'at decree, karma not